Shannon Smith here again at Palm Beach Shooting Center with Fast Academy. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about how to grip the semi-automatic pistol. We're using the Glock 17. It's one of my standard competition guns as well as my training gun. We have empty range here, place is closed. I'm going to be turning a bunch of different directions, and empty firearm, no magazine in there, nothing in the chamber for safety reasons. Grip is probably one of the most underestimated or misunderstood aspects of fast shooting. And it's not so much important for accuracy, but for speed. Pulling the trigger correctly doesn't really have anything to do with how you're gripping the gun. You can pull the trigger properly and get an accurate shot. But for that quick follow-up shot or rapid fire shooting or the point shooting, if you want to get into that conversation, the grip is everything. Well, without getting too much detail, we all know pretty much how a semi-automatic firearm works. When you fire the weapon, the bullet exits the barrel, and then you have the slide reciprocating on top of the gun. Well, that slide reciprocating is really where your felt recoil or your muzzle flip comes from. If you think of this like a lever, for example, when this mass of metal or slide reciprocates above your hand, and the bore line is above your hand, that's where that flip, that muzzle rise or recoil or felt recoil comes into play. So again, thinking like a lever, if I were to hold down here, we could all agree that would be less efficient in controlling the recoil. Conversely, if I could hold the firearm here, it wouldn't flip at all. It would come straight back in your hand because your hand is level with the bore line and everything would be coming straight to the rear. There's nothing to generate that flipping motion. Obviously, we can't do that. So that said, we want to get as high on the firearm as we can get to mitigate as much of that recoil as possible. So I'm right-handed grip between your thumb and your first finger, that web of your hand. You want to get high up underneath the tang or the beaver tail of the firearm. That's going to help control that recoil as much as possible. Our middle finger is going to be high up underneath the trigger guard. Our trigger finger alongside of the frame is a good place to keep it, give it something to do, keep it out of the trigger guard until you're ready to shoot. And then my right thumb is going to be high also. The most widely accepted grip now is the thumb over thumbs grip. So when our support hand comes into play, we need to keep this strong hand thumb high in order to achieve that grip. So this is our right-handed strong hand grip. Once that's achieved, we can see we've got a spot in here for our support hand or our left hand to come in. I like to just kind of grab comfortably around my own fingers and just kind of wedge that hand in to control the recoil. Basically, it's going to fill in this space, fill in the gap that's set up here. The thumb over thumbs grip is the most widely accepted grip, a freestyle grip on the pistol now. And again, you want to keep everything as high as you can. So index finger of your weak hand is going to be high up underneath the trigger guard. We have that right thumb over left thumb set up, and if I take my strong hand away, you can see how high the support hand is. The support hand thumb is actually right up against the frame where the frame and the slide of the firearm meet. And that high grip is, again, what's going to help you control that recoil, keep that muzzle rise to a minimum. So our strong hand comes in, our support hand comes into play. And in controlling the recoil, I like to think of it in terms of getting behind the gun to stop the recoil, as opposed to vicing in on the gun to try to stop the recoil. So thinking of it in those terms, I use the backs of my strong hand fingers almost as an additional wall to push off of and kind of be able to stop that recoil from the back. So support hand is going to come in, and I can almost feel the strong hand fingers digging into the heel step palm of your weak hand. So as those fingernails dig in, that's giving us an additional wall to push onto, thumb over thumb. And as we extend out to the target, to our final firing position, this will be our set position, our final firing position. The key here is locking or setting the wrist of our support hand. So when you extend out to the target, the important key is this weak hand or support hand being in a set or locked position. Wouldn't call it uncomfortable, but it is a bit more canted forward than you would think is natural. You'll just kind of feel the tendons on the top of your hand here come into play, and everything kind of tightens up and gets set. And then the wrist is locked, and by locked it means if you're trying to lever up on it, you would not be able to. It's locked into position, almost like a boxer throwing a punch. That's how you want to extend out. And that's where the big key is in controlling your recoil. So with that hand set and extended out, you'll notice it's in that locked position, and that's what really helps to control the recoil. A couple of tests for this, you can check yourself. Once you're presented to the target, the sight's up at eye level, presenting to the target, freeze everything you've got and just open the fingers of your weak hand, and they should go down at a 45-degree angle. That's showing you've got that hand or wrist set or locked. If I present out again, it probably looks nearly the same to the naked eye, but now open the fingers, you can see that they're not going down. It's not in that locked position. So the difference between here and here appears kind of subtle, but that's everything in control in that recoil. Another little test for it is this kind of bulge in your knuckle or your palm or thumb here meets up between the knuckles of your strong hand thumb. But those two pieces are going to fit right there almost like a puzzle, and that's kind of how you'll know you're in that position as well. If those two pieces are locked up properly, you can see you can extend the fingers out and they'll set up right. Now I'll talk a little bit about grip pressure. I think a lot of instructors these days say 70-30. I used to say the same thing, although I never really measured that, just kind of made it up. But you do want more of your grip pressure coming from your support hand or your weak hand than your strong hand. The reason for that is if you, with your strong hand, envision or try making a fist as hard as you can possibly make it and leave your trigger finger extended and then try to work your trigger finger, it's hard to manipulate that because all your muscles and everything's tensed up. Versus if you keep it everything a little more lax, and it's much easier to manipulate that trigger finger and work it properly. So for that reason, largely, you want most of your grip to come from your left hand because it's not doing anything but hanging onto the gun, leaving your right hand a little more relaxed and able to work that trigger properly, and we'll probably get to trigger pull in another episode. So grip pressure, lock the wrist. Once the wrist is set, about 70% of that pressure is coming from your support hand, from your weak hand, allowing your trigger finger free to work the trigger. All right, so now we know what our proper grip setup should be in its final position. Now the key to executing it is hitting that grip off the draw stroke every time, which is probably one of the most difficult things to do. We'll cover the full draw stroke in another episode without going into it. Once you have your strong hand grip established, which you'll get that as the firearm's in the holster, as you present out the target, that's when you want to set your support hand or roll your support hand into position. I like to meet them pretty early in front of my chest, and as I present out the target, keeping the guns kind of parallel to the ground or on target, that's where I allow my support hand to roll into position. So as this gun drives out, I meet the support hand almost as a reverse knife edge kind of deal, and then as I present the gun to target, this hand continues to roll into position until you end up with that set locked wrist position that we covered. So meet it early, close into your body. As you present the gun out, rolling out, you'll see the support hand roll into position. So when we reach our final firing position, now I can do my checks. The puzzle piece fits up, open the hands, they're going down, everything checks right. And the key is hitting that 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, and that just takes repetition. This is Shannon Smith here again at Palm Beach Shooting Center. We just covered the grip. Check us out on YouTube for more episodes coming. We'll cover more techniques. If there's anything particular you guys want to see or learn about, let us know. In the meantime, you can check us out on the website, palmbeachshootingcenter.com, or hit us up on Facebook. Thanks.